Hello, everyone, and welcome to Weekly Manga Recap. It is February the 19th of 2020. I am Nick, here with Chris to talk about manga and other things that we just feel like talking about. That is the way the show works.
Yeah. For example, Nick, I need to tell you about a movie that I just watched.
Okay.
Did you hear at all about the Clint Eastwood movie, The Mule, that came out 2 years ago?
Yes. A little bit.
I
Not a lot, but
I specifically live for movies and media that will make you say, what the fuck is happening? Why did someone make this? Holy shit, the entire way through. And
okay.
in that way, The Mule was the best movie I have seen in the past 3 years, because it is an absolute clusterfuck of a movie from beginning to end. The entire premise is that 90-year-old Clint Eastwood, he's 90 in the movie. He's only 88 probably when he actually
so
filmed
different.
the movie.
So different.
I don't know how they decided they could pick whatever age they wanted for him. They made him 90 in the movie, but he looks so much older than 90. And I don't know why.
I'm seeing some shots. He looks like he was burned.
You know how old, when you get really old, sometimes people kind of start to curl in on themselves, almost kind of like they start turning into a baby again, where their body starts pulling towards the center of gravity. He has that going for him, and knowing all of that, decided he was like, I'm gonna make a vanity project movie. Everyone's gonna call me cool and think about how cool I am at all times. I need my Poochie movie, basically. Because that's all this movie is. It's a collection of people who think and talk about how cool Clint Eastwood is, particularly minorities and lesbians.
Oh no.
I'm not really. There's a lot of very odd scenes, but everyone after one scene with him will learn to respect him. So every person who would be an antagonist in the movie will meet him and be like, hey man, I don't like the way you're doing things. I'm part of the Mexican cartel, because it's a Mexican cartel.
Right.
And I don't like the way you're doing things. We're following things my book there, essay. And it'll just be like, don't think so. And then the next time,
That's why is Clint Eastwood played by Randy Savage?
Don't think so. And then,
Hulk Hogan, you think that you can make me run your drugs your way, but we're gonna run them my way. Yeah.
But that's the thing. He doesn't have that much force in him. So it's just something like, I don't think so there, mister. And then the next scene you'll see
So maybe more Bret Hart than Randy Savage.
Yeah, the cartel member has now learned to respect him. They've learned the errors of the ways. So while that's the first scene, the second scene is always like, oh, it's Grandpa. Grandpa's back. How's it going, man? How's your family doing? Let's barbecue again sometime. Ole vato. And you're just like...
So it's basically like, hey, man, what makes you think you can do your things your way? We're going to do them your way. We're going to do them my way. No, we're going to do them my way.
Clint Eastwood has 2 separate threesomes in this movie, Nick.
Oh!
He has 2 separate threesomes. There's a scene where a woman in a bikini is dancing and she has a gigantic ass, and Clint Eastwood has to grab onto her butt for a scene and kind of dance with it. And I think the pelvic gyrations of her butt was too much, and it knocks him off balance, and he kind of falls backwards, and then the scene just cuts to something else. And then half of the way through the movie, they were like, this should be about a movie about a guy who lost his career because of growing advances of technology and had to turn to crime because he had no other way he could think to make money.
Right.
But instead, it's just a movie about how cool this guy is once it becomes a drug mule, and almost starts to become a buddy movie where he starts to be like, hey, I know you like my enforcer sent by the cartel to make sure I'm doing my jobs correctly. But have you ever thought what you want out of life? Like, what are you really getting out of this? Are you really living life to the fullest? I'm like, I don't understand what this movie is anymore. Isn't the DEA chasing after you?
So what you're saying is that the guy's played by Noho Hang from Barry.
It really, you have to understand what an absolute mess of a movie it is.
Listen, buddy, I know that I'm having you run across the border to get my drugs and stuff, but is that really fulfilling for you? I'm very concerned about this.
It'd be different if it was like a joke or an angle. It's just there's weird scenes where Clint Eastwood has these two guys like sit down at like a roast beef sandwich place, and all the white people are staring at them, and they're like, "Yo, everyone's staring at us." He's like, "Well, that's just because you're two brown spots in a big white soup." Have you ever thought about what you want to do after all of this? He's like, "You guys need to loosen up. You're taking things so seriously. Like, we're illegally smuggling drugs. This isn't a party. I don't know."
So
10 out of 10 movie. Watch it the first chance you get.
Guys, watch out for Weekly Manga Recap's upcoming review of Clint Eastwood's The Mule. And you've sold me a little too hard in this movie, Chris. Like,
it's so good. There's so many moments that just as you watch it, you're like, someone had to agree to just be like, yeah, I guess I'll be the lesbian bike gang member who's like, "You're pretty cool too, old man." All right.
Chris, we have a recommendation we're talking about this week. This is a series.
No, we don't.
Yes, we do.
Oh, well, uh-oh. I thought I could just like hand wave it away.
You could just use your psychic powers to make me forget. Oh, transition straight into talking about Mob Psycho 100. So this is a series that is available online. It was published online originally, I should say, by the author of One Punch Man. Now, if you hear me say that and you think, oh, so there's going to be some wacky comedy interspersed with some really cool looking action scenes. No. The original version of One Punch Man, one did just make themselves. But the one that you're familiar with had Yusuke Murata as the artist. And that's why it looks so good. This series does not. You are going to have to get used to a very simplistic art style with very round faces and round eyes. And everyone having the same face, but different hairstyles. Which is fine if you're okay with, that. I personally found the art style to be very distracting at certain points. But that said, it's still the same writing. So if you like One Punch Man's sense of humor, there's going to be a lot of different moments of that. Combined with a lot of navel gazing, which is where the series sometimes tends to lose me. I've heard a lot of good things about the anime adaptation of this series. After I read it, I went and watched a few clips. It looks really good, honestly. It made me wish that we had watched the anime instead of reading the manga. Because although there are a lot of good points, and I don't want to come away from this say like, oh, I hated this series, because it didn't really. It's just that there were a lot of points where I just started to completely tune out while reading this. The series is about a kid with psychic powers named, was it Kobashi? I think it's his real name, or Kobayashi. I forget. He's called Mob.
It's Kageyama, isn't it?
Kageyama, yeah. Okay. Kageyama Shigeo.
I was gonna say, I literally know two characters' names in this entire series.
And he has psychic powers, but he doesn't really care that he has psychic powers. He is trying to find his way in the world. There's a girl he's got a crush on that he would like to like him back. He's trying to find something that he can be passionate about. And meanwhile, of course, there are all these different people for various different reasons who want to either find someone who's got psychic powers or gain their own psychic powers. And Mob is far and away the most powerful psychic in the entire world, and he doesn't really care for the most part. And this is a series that contrasts, like trying to gain the ultimate power, that kind of shonen thing, with going through puberty and just having to grow up and come to grips with the way that, you want to be seen, you want to feel about yourself, you want to be treated by other people, and what kind of place you want to have in the world. Those parts of the series tend to be interesting for the most part. Kind of goes on for a while. This is a series that was supposed to be like 100 chapters, but most of the chapters towards the end have like like 99-3, 94-7, and it's like you're trying very hard to have this 100 chapter series not be 100 chapters. It's conventions because it's Mob Psycho 100. It's got 100 chapters. See, it's I don't really know where to start in talking about this series beyond that's the premise. I wouldn't necessarily call this a funny series. It's a funny series, but I wouldn't necessarily call it a comedy, because there's so many stretches where they're just, like I said before, navel gazing. In terms of like, what does my psychic power mean? Should I use it? I shouldn't use it, but I have to. I don't want to fight, but I have to. It's a lot of that. I got bored and I stopped paying attention.
Yeah, I mean,
there's too much of that. I'm sorry. Like I literally am I'm trying to think of good stuff in this, and there is. Believe me, there is. But so much of it, my reading experience for this was just like, I'm bored now. I want to stop reading.
It is an excessively wordy manga at times as well, where it's not enough like sight gags. It's a lot of like dialogue of characters talking and a lot of reactions to like the setup, expectation, kind of punchline sort of deal. And it's okay. Like, honestly, those parts are far and away the worst parts to me, is when it's trying to be funny, because it just doesn't work for me. That's not to say it's bad. It's just I don't really get the humor, particularly in this series, all that much. There's like a handful of times where I get like a tee-hee or a giggle out of it, but like we'll be talking later on about MASH, and I was like, MASH feels significantly funnier than this series was to me, at least. There's a couple moments though where it does play with expectations and its weirdness that does kind of actually, generally when it's not actually used for the joke, it's kind of better, because this series is sort of lives on either subverting the expectations of what a shonen series would do, or doing it and then making it very silly and cartoonish. Like, hey, let's have a big climactic super battle, but the villain's head's been shaved bald and he's naked the entire time. So he looks kind of stupid and goofy the whole time. But it's still really in like a really dramatic fight between these two characters or whatever. So I kind of appreciate parts of that. I didn't watch any of the anime. I didn't really get like an expectation like I should. Reading it though, I was like, I bet this works a lot better in anime, because
it does.
The big issue I have is that the art style really holds this series back. The moments where things are meant to be really dramatic just don't have the punch to it. And the moment where even when you're really trying to go for like a big cool moment too, they don't really have the impact they need either. Like the entire scene where he goes nuts, he breaks his 100, or gets his 100 rather, I should say, and feels sadness, and he has to like repair his school. Like, it feels like that should have been like a pretty climactic and cool scene, but like the art style can really only do subdued melancholy, essentially. So there's certain moments where the art just kind of doesn't lend itself particularly well. And I think where if you're able to animate it and you're able to add a score to it, you can kind of do a lot more along those lines, and probably that's why the anime works so much better.
Hmm. And also, it's just kind of paced a bit better. You don't have it doesn't feel as wordy when people are just explaining what's happening, verbally in the middle of a fight, as opposed to, you have to read the word bubbles around stuff. Um, and also, it's just, you're able to appreciate the style more when it actually looks so good, as opposed to, the style is something that one is just capable of drawing because he's not all that great, at least for the first half of the series before it gets a little bit better over time. Yeah, you described the big fights, the first big fight scene in the series, and yeah, that was where I was like, oh, oh no, it's just not all that, it's just not very good.
Yeah.
Um, because there's all this, this character is, focusing all of their energy around themselves, and there's like debris strewing around them and stuff, and it's just like, well, you drew some lines there in order to, emphasize there's movement and stuff, but it's one of those things where like, um, multiple times we have compared the style of Mashle to one's work, but like you observed last week, where there's that big spell that Wahlberg casts, where it's heavily detailed and bizarre, and then it's like, oh, okay, this is a stylistic choice. It's not based on the artist's limitations. No, this style is based off of the artist's limitations, and that's fine.
Yeah.
If you're able to get past that, cool. I'm sure you'll have a much better time reading this than I did. Um, I also feel as though people's like a lot of the characters don't come off as well as they should. I can think of one character in this series I like, literally one. The body improvement president. like, um, but Mob's boring. Um, his brother is kind of there. He's got a bunch of allies that are just kind of annoying, because they're supposed to have, these personality quirks that kind of make them endearing, but they're just annoying. And then there's his master, Raken, who I think is supposed to be a lot more charming than he came off for me. So yeah.
I feel like we're coming into this with some pretty low energy, and I don't know if that's necessarily meant to be super indicative of the series itself, because a lot of people really enjoyed this one.
I know.
This is
I
a super
think that's
popular franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I right now I'm feeling low energy, so I'm not able to add a ton of this. And this is a particularly great week of manga we're about to discuss.
Yeah.
So I feel like
you just don't want to get past this.
In a week where like I want to talk about essentially every other series, this one is kind of like, it's there. I'm glad you like it. I don't feel like I need to, but I'm glad that you do, and I hope you continue to get great stuff out of it. Like that's. I joked to you that I was like, can't I just do a shrug emoji as a review of this? It's just there. Like I don't think it's anything good or bad to this. Like understand, I also don't read One Punch Man anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that this guy's storytelling grabs me for more than like an instant kind of thing. And that had Murata's artwork to kind of pull you in a lot longer for me.
I feel after reading this series the same way I felt after I watched Into the Spider-Verse, which was, I see why you like it, and that's great that you like it, but man, Kingpin sucks in that movie, and I don't like that movie very much. There's a lot of great parts of. I feel that Into the Spider-Verse is much better than I felt that this series was, but it did not get me really like the same way that it got a lot of people. And there are a lot of people that Mob Psycho 100 gets, and it did not get me. And I do think a significant part of that is just a matter of like, well, more people are familiar with the anime. It looks different and it's paced differently than reading the manga. Maybe if I did watch it, I would say like, oh yeah, that's a lot better. But there are definitely certain parts of it that it would not fix for me. Primarily that I think that the most interesting parts of the series are just some of the insights that it makes uh, on, growing up and, what makes someone important and stuff. Uh, but it does not need to take as long as it does to make some of those points. And the only things that I thought were really good were like the first times it made those points. So, for example, one of the things that Mob is told early on by Reagan is, look, you've got psychic powers, or rather, he says we've got psychic powers, but he's lying because he doesn't have psychic powers. Reagan doesn't, I mean. But he tells Mob, like, look, you've got psychic powers, but that doesn't necessarily make you better than anyone else. When you think about it, there are people who are like really good actors. There are people who are really intelligent. There are people who are really physically fit, and you've got psychic powers. And yeah, that's your special skill, but that doesn't mean that you are, an incredible, a better person than anyone else. Just as, if you're a really good actor, that doesn't make you a better person than anyone else. And that's, a nice lesson to impart to, a confused kid regarding, like, okay, yeah, you've got this quality that makes you unique. That doesn't mean that you are more or less important than anyone. And yeah, that's good. That's good, and it's something that a lot of characters have to learn through the course of the series, because this is something that plays with that seventh grade syndrome thing of, oh, well, I'm 12 and I'm confused about where I fit into the world. But you know what? It would be great if I, had, special abilities. And so I was different. I was different from everyone else. And that would make me unique, and that would make me special. And that allows them to get past those feelings of confusion and angst that people experience at a certain age. And that's kind of the point of the series, of being set primarily in junior high with a lot of characters with psychic powers, is that, Mob is the most powerful psychic person in the world, but he still has those feelings of, where do I fit in with everything? Why do I have these hormones and this anger and depression and other sorts of things that I've never had to deal with before? So if the series had been more just about that, but kept it tighter, I feel I would have enjoyed the series a lot more. There are parts of it that just kind of play there are people with special abilities much straighter, that are just there. And because the artwork's not there, it's just not all that good. The entire thing with, like, we've got to fight these people from this organization, and we've got these different characters to fight them, is like, yeah, but fight scenes aren't interesting. They don't look good. So that bugged me. I liked the relationship between Mob and his brother.
I like that. That's actually probably my favorite part of the series, is the fact that it's generally a very supportive relationship.
It's a supportive relationship, but there's also that feeling of tension because Ritsu envies Mob's psychic abilities and wants to have them for himself. But I also really like the idea that each of them is a little bit jealous of what the other has, because Ritsu is this, physically fit, intelligent, perfect student, and Mob is not. He's just, a regular, mostly below average kid who happens to have extraordinary psychic abilities, and each of them want exactly what the other one has, and they don't. And that's what they're kind of, strive towards being each other. And although there's some tension in the beginning because, Ritsu has those feelings of inadequacy, he wants to have those psychic powers. He ends up going down a really dark path in order to obtain them. There's a conflict between them, but then it gets resolved and they spend the rest of the series basically just supporting each other. And it's nice. And then so I'll talk about the funniest moment in the series. So very early on, there's these slacker kids who have formed this psychic studying club where basically they just have a club room and they eat and they put their club budget towards getting snacks so that they can hang out after school and play video games and stuff. And they're told you don't have enough members to form this club, so you have to get another member. And so they go around trying to find a new member, and of course they end up coming across Mob, who has actual psychic powers, and they try to convince him to join the club so that their club won't get disbanded. Meanwhile, the student council is telling them, like, look, the Body Improvement Club is put in so that they can have, this club room and stuff. They actually do stuff, and you guys don't. So, yeah, we just want to disband you so that they can have this. And so it comes down to the last moment. The Body Improvement Club is ready to move in. The Psychic Studying Club is like, no, but we found this guy. And the student council is like, well, is he actually signing up with you? And they're like, please, Mob, you've got to do this. Please, you've got to join us so that our club doesn't get disbanded. And Mob looks around and he's like, all right, I'll join. I'll join the Body Improvement Club. Because that's what he wants to do. He wants to get physically fit so that he can be more social and stuff. And it turns out that the Body Improvement Club is a group of really friendly guys who, sure, they'll welcome this weird kid with a bowl cut into their group. And even though he's, always passes out when he goes running with them, they're always encouraging him to get better. They tell the Psychic Club, like, yeah, you guys can stay here and hang out. We just need a place to stow our stuff when we go out jogging. They're friendly to everyone in the coolest possible way. There's like this bully who they end up kind of taking in, and the bully gets, Onigawara is his name, gets accused of stealing like all the girls' recorders and licking them and stuff. And so he goes to the club to hide, and the president's like, listen, we know you're innocent. Why don't you stand up for yourself so you don't have to deal with being treated this way? You just, believing him and supporting him. At the end, towards the end of the series, they need somewhere to hide out. And the president calls up his grandmother and is like, we're going to go hang out at my grandma's place. There's a room for everyone, and we can go out there and work out. It's just really nice that there's this example of like, okay, this guy's, basically got it figured out. He's a total musclehead, but he's just nice to people, even though he's stupid. So,
yeah. I liked I like Dimple a lot too. I thought Dimple was a pretty fun character. I also like that Dimple kind of almost gets this Krillin moment where he vanishes away, and Bob's like, "Oh no!" And he's like, "Did that make you angry enough to use your power?" He's like, "Yeah, not really." Like it still takes like a bunch of other stuff to happen.
Yeah, because he seemingly gets killed, and he's like, is this going to unleash your anger? And there's a running thing throughout the series of percentages. Whenever Mob has a lot of emotion build up inside of him, he unleashes in this huge burst of psychic power that is associated with, either sadness or anger or some various other things, and the exact emotion he experiences defines how his psychic powers are utilized. And so you see this kind of gradually building up in him over the course of the series at different moments, especially early on. Like each chapter will end with a little percentage. Mob is at blank percent. And when it hits 100 is when he unleashes all of his rage. And so there's a moment where he's fighting this guy, and Dimple, who is this spirit that he had exorcised, who then proceeds to hang out with him so that he can try and take over Mob's brain, but because he's kind of an asshole. But anyway, is hanging out with Mob, and he tries to defend him from this attack, and then he seemingly gets killed. And you see Mob's, anger counter is like 45%. Was that guy important to you? Mob's anger counter 45%. Well, it seems he's dead now. How does that make you feel? Mob's anger counter 45%. She just didn't react to it literally at all.
But they keep showing flashbacks as though like the manga's trying to get you to be like,
hey,
what a big sad moment.
It just didn't have any emotional response to it whatsoever, despite remembering all those things.
I think maybe my favorite joke in the series is, I don't remember what Dimple is talking about, but he's saying something to Mob, and Mob has like a text box where he's just like, what is he saying? And then he turns, he's like, Dimple, stop talking to yourself. And he's like, I'm talking to you!
He's not even paying attention to
But I like that dismissive attitude of like, what's this bitch blathering about? Hey, stop talking to yourself.
You sound crazy, Dimple. I guess we have to talk about Reagan a little bit, at
Dude,
least.
we've been doing 30 minutes. Haven't we? We've covered Mob Psycho, Nick.
I guess. Well, but he's technically the second most important character in the series, kind of. I guess he's supposedly a psychic who sells his services to people. He doesn't actually have any psychic powers, but he just has all these other means of helping people out. And then he just acts as if what he did was a psychic thing. Like, oh, yes, you've got an evil spirit, inside your muscles. Let me just psychically massage them so that my psychic chiropractic methods will exercise the spirit. Do you feel better? Yes. Wow, what a great psychic you are. It's that kind of thing. Um, so from what I understand, a lot of people like Reagan, and I don't know why. And I actually, at one point, was like, because I just had one of those kind of moments where I had, read the series and then I was like, what the fuck even happened in this? And I had that specifically about his character. And so I went and looked up, what did Reagan fucking do? Because he shows up a couple of times. He actually has a fight scene once or twice. And so I looked up the character and I opened up the Mob Psycho 100 wiki in order to read it. And it says under the top section of conception and reaction to him, outside of the Mob Psycho 100 universe, Reagan is considered a sex symbol because he is handsome and because of his demeanor. I'm like, who the fuck wrote this?
Did the manga character gain sentience and write it for himself? Because that's what I'd write if I could write a Wikipedia for myself. Like, Christopher Larios is very handsome and very cool. Everyone wants to have sex with him, and they think he's super cool.
And I read the personality bio, and it's like, he cares a lot about the people around. It's like he's kind of a selfish dick with a heart of gold. He's that character is like he exploits Mob throughout the entire series, but he does actually care about him. He's that kind of character. He's not, this kind of upstanding citizen. And you can just tell that it's like, some one very big fan of the character wrote that entire article. And I'm like, well, now I don't have a better idea of what this character's like at all. This was a waste of time. It's just distorted my view of him even more. I didn't like him. I liked some of the gags that were associated with him. I liked a couple of bits of the wisdom they had to impart. And I like the idea that he's a good mentor for Mob. And Mob sought him out because he thinks that he's a fellow psychic and he's, got this experience, but he doesn't actually have any psychic powers. And he's just keeping him up around to do the actual psychic grunt work. But he does have these insights that can actually help Mob in the way that he needs help. That's a cool idea, and that's a cool dynamic to establish. But I don't get the love for him from people who love him. But whatever. That's enjoy the characters you like, I guess.
I say, look, people are allowed to like this series and like the characters in it, and we don't have to necessarily get all that. Neither of us seem like we're two people who are super on board with this series and love it. So a lot of the nuances we're probably missing just because it didn't really click with us. So as always with this podcast, when we talk about something and you have the opposite feeling, understand that we're not attacking your love for the series or saying it's bad and you should feel bad for enjoying it or anything like that. People are different and have different opinions.
Or you're bad for not liking something that we like.
Yeah. People have different opinions.
We talk about entirely shonen stuff on this show, so
we're very limited and bad like that. Look, and I could absolutely recommend Mob Psycho. I just think if someone was like, oh, do you think I should read it? I'd be like, I think you should watch it, probably. I haven't watched it myself, but I considering how popular it is, I feel like watching it is the way. Like, I feel like this series succeeded because it had anime, because I can't imagine enough people were able to get over the artwork and everything like that to really go for it.
Mm-hmm. All right, we should move on now because we do have a bunch of regular manga to talk about, and there's a lot of exciting stuff to talk about this week. So let's kick off with My Hero Academia, number 261, High Ends. Last time, Mirko had seemingly killed Johnny. Like, there's brain goose slapping around that door that she knocked onto him. Um, so that seems to have prevented Ujiko's escape. So she's racing, chasing him down, wrecking up the facility that he's now in. There's an odd moment. I get the part at the beginning here where Ujiko is like, "Oh," has a flashback, and he's like, "Oh, good boy, Johnny. Good job. You did a good job." But then there's a bit where, he remembers All for One, complimenting him for his work and thanking him for, what he had done for him. I guess he's reacting that way because Mirko's wrecking the fuck out of his facility. I guess that's what's going on.
I would presume. I would. You would like to think that right now he thinks he's done for. So it's like light flashing before his eyes kind of deal.
Mm-hmm. Mirko communicates that she has found Ujiko. I like the detail where she's, going over a communicator so we don't actually hear one part of the conversation. But I like how she observes, like, yeah, I don't know if he's the real one, but if I kick him, that should tell me if it's him or not. We get a lot of, kind of jumping around between different points where all the heroes are acting. Then we see there are, of course, Nomu attacking people. And then we go back to Mirko attacking Ujiko, who is spluttering and crying because, there's a scary hero coming after him. And he says, like, "I'm the real one, don't hurt me." And she's like, "Well, I better kick you to make sure that you're the real one, But then there's a really odd thing that happens, because I don't know exactly what happens in this exact moment. So we get kind of a slow motion sequence where Ujiko is trying to pull a control box out before Mirko can reach him. He starts to go for it, and Mirko seems to notice it and kicks his arm. And at the exact moment she starts to kick him, suddenly Johnny is there again and headbutts her. I don't know. No, it's not. It's not Johnny. It's a different one. It's a different thing like Johnny, named Mocha. But it headbutts her.
No, it doesn't. It teleports him away. Like, it jumps up and starts using its quirk to get him out of there. That's what I.
Well,
oh, wait, maybe not. Never mind.
Mirko observes that it has the double quirk, and Ujiko's body, comes out of it when it appears before her. But so did she kick his arm? Look, sometimes you need to actually show me what happens in a visual medium, okay? Or at least tell me what happened if I can't see it. So, but Ujiko says that what has happened here is that Mocha used their quirk without being told to in order to protect him. As a result of that, it distracts Mirko, I guess, enough that Ujiko is able to activate the controller, and that unleashes a bunch of the high ends who immediately go after her. And there's a cool shot from this point with them all rushing her at once. One grabs her by the face. She's kicking the head off of one of them. Cool shot. And of course, a fight breaks out after this point, as they're all like, going to go kill some heroes. Another high end comes before another hero. Crust is his name, I guess? Or does he just get called Crust? I don't know. He's a pro hero. I know we've seen him before. I don't care who he is. Ujiko jumps in a chair, which speeds him off while the high ends start taking care of the heroes. Mirko is facing down 4 of them herself. Confusing action.
So it's actually, like, moment of confusion aside, I think a super fun chapter and pretty exciting. Like, as we kind of mentioned earlier, like this week has really good series. So even though I'd probably rank this towards like maybe the bottom of the series we're going to talk about this week, this was a really good chapter still that's like really exciting and kind of is moving us in a pretty fun direction.
I agree.
There we go.
And this is, I like that it wasn't just a matter of, Uchiko had another thing planned in order to bail him out. It was like, no, he got lucky in order to get away. So,
yeah.
All right. We're going to talk about actage.
All right, cool. I'm going to be back.
All right, bye, Chris. There's a cool color spread at the beginning. Chris. Oh. All right, fine. I'll talk about actage. So anyway, well, that asshole's gone. So, of course, last time the B team, or B cast rather, had met up in order to figure out how they're going to have Chiyoko beat Kei. Kei goes to hang out with Hanako at her house so that they can, have a discussion about, the shit that went down. The advice that she gets from, oh gosh, what's his name? Whatever. Actor dude is if she's going to attack Hanako to use her bare hands and not a weapon. Good murder advice. No, it's not. I'll still leave evidence. Kei apologizes for, slapping Hanako. Somehow she's got a bruise from that slap. Girl went after her hard. Hanako apologizes in turn, or rather starts to, and Kei's like, yeah, well, I mean, that guy barely came home whenever mom was alive, so I figured one day, yeah, some lover of his would show up, but all that she cares about in this moment is the fact that she wasn't able to perform the play to its conclusion. Hanako feels bad about this as well. Kei apologized because she didn't realize that Hanako was feeling very alone. And Hanako goes outside. Kuroyama approaches her and says, I have a pretty idea now about what you did to Unagi. The fact that the Ox King never shows up in the end is because you really have no expectations of men. Well, not just of men, which makes the comment that he makes weird. You expect nothing of anyone, including yourself, so there's really no way for you to interpret anything. In the end, you leave it to the actors. And then he gets real close to her and says, if you can't finish what you've started, don't mess with my actor. So at this point, they're actually treating Hanako like, oh yeah, she freaking failed and let Kei down. And it'd be nice if more directors were taken to task for the way that they treated her. Well, primarily that first one with the, putting her in the flood. Where's Chris? So there's a discussion amongst the B cast. Then outside of the hall, a little girl gets separated from her mother. She happens to run into a hooded figure, and it's Chiyoko in disguise. And she says, I went home to shower, so I'm late. So that's a secret. She goes inside and has a message from Akira, which we get to see later. Chiyoko shows up. Kuriyama scolds her for being late. And then it's revealed that Chiyoko is wearing the Iron Fan outfit. And she says, let's go win this. And then we see that Chiyoko's message from Akira just says, the star's job is to serve the audience. And that's it. So, hey, Chris is back. What perfect timing.
Cool. Are we done talking about actage?
Basically.
Sweet.
I wanted to say that I do like, I was saying earlier that I was like, okay, it's nice that someone called out a director for treating Kei badly. It'd be nice if that happened more often, pretty much. So, I don't really know what happened in terms of, because there's a couple of scenes in this that honestly seem to happen for like no reason, but whatever.
It's okay. Again, I'm glad they're at least taking Chiasa or Chiyoko. What's
Chiyoko is the actress.
Okay. Chiyoko, I'm glad they're like giving her this whole thing, and giving it this build up and developing her. And I do like Kageyama, or fuck, there's too many characters called Kageyama. He can't be. What's the director's name?
Kuriyama.
Kuriyama. I'm glad he sticks up for Kay, although it feels less like sticking up for Kay and more like, hey, don't fuck up this commodity I've kind of put work into.
Yeah. He's actually, protective of that asset. Yes.
So I can enjoy that. Now I actually say it, I don't actually like it, because now I really do think that's the tone there is kind of a little icky.
I don't like the
chapter.
Well, this particular interaction between them is really weird because he's like, "Oh yeah, you don't have any expectations of men," but then immediately it jumps to like, "Well, no, you don't have any expectations of anyone, including yourself." Which, like, well, then why did you have to say it in like the most sexist way possible? It's like, "Oh, you don't think well of men." It's like, is this the thing? Is this the basis of the criticism of the first female director in this series? The fact that she's got like hangups about men? No, it's not. But I'm still gonna, talk down to you. And this is the first time that we've really gone hard on a director in this series, and it happens to be the first female one. And it's like, that's awkward.
She's kind of just become this weird thing where there's not. I don't really get what the angle is anymore. I'm sure her story is not done yet, but she's become this artist who is essentially forcing other people to try to finish her work for her, and I don't know, it just kind of loses esteem. I guess maybe it's because the other directors felt very simple in their concept, and this one feels like it's a very complex topic that doesn't get all the time. But again, her story is not done. It could change. Yeah.
I think that the idea is supposed to be, because the series has occasionally talked about the relationship between directors and actors, and I think that the idea is supposed to be that the director is supposed to have a vision, and it's up to the actor to fulfill that vision. Whereas Hanako had an idea of how to start, and she just wanted to see where the performance took itself. And because of that, Kei's performance fell apart at the end because there wasn't anything laid out for how things were supposed to go. It was literally Hanako just, shaking things and seeing what would come out of it. Whereas Kuriyama and other directors have this idea of how they want things to go, and then they're trying to push things in order to make that happen. Even when you have, the the director of Death Island.
Oh,
he had.
You were trying to think of his name, Nick. That's not an important enough character to remember his name.
He had this thing of like, I specifically want Chiyoko's mask to break. And he pushed the buttons and threw Chiyoko and Kei against each other in order to try and get that. And in the end, he got that. As they went over in the previous chapter, Chiyoko's mask drops a little and there's a big reaction to it. And then during the play, the director's like, I'm going to tell you what death is about. And then because of that, he is basically able to live through the performance of the play. They have a solid idea of this is how I want the thing to go. And then Hanako's like, I want to see my imaginary friend again, and I need to be taken to a world of imagination, and I hate myself a lot, so you fix my problems while I'm supposed to be putting on this play that affects all of you, and I'm going to tell you I slept with your dad. So maybe I think the idea is that she is not in the place where she should be doing this, and that's why Kuriyama hates her, because she is affecting someone he cares about. So
yeah. All right, let's talk about Eden Zero, Chapter 82, Scolding. Didn't see the series taking this kind of turn. I really, after last week, was like, can't wait to see how our heroes get out of this one. Well, the answer to that is they don't. Dragon Joe activated his over limit, or whatever they call it, and then he turns it off because he's kind of done with it. And he's like, ooh, do you know how much that girl is worth? And Shiki's like, she's worth a lot. She's my friend.
That's not what I'm talking about. Anyway.
He's like, well, then wouldn't she be You're kind of insinuating there's still sort of a price on her.
Listen, she's a woman, and I say something really gross about the other woman in this group, so...
He's like, oh, friends are just a social construct fostering fellowship and empathy. It's sort of like time. It's just kind of created by us.
It's like, I mean, you're not wrong, I guess.
I suppose. Shiki's like, well, my friends will help me move forward, and he punches with all of his gravity, and Dracojo's like, that doesn't work on me. I can turn my body into the hardest mineral known on the planet, and just blocks it, basically. And he's like, yeah, I did my research on you. You now wield the Satan gravity that the Demon King used. Satan gravity? What's that?
What it is!
Yeah. And, he says also, according to Master Noah, you are the key to unlocking, quote, the cat's powers. So, presumably happy, but maybe we'll meet another cat. I don't know. And then Dracojo just turns Shiki into stone. Pino tries to use her EMP. Jin blows her away so she can't. And next time we cut over is Shiki and all the other characters in like sort of a robot alley prison cell.
Well, all the other human characters.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All the other characters. He has them all handcuffed, and he's like, don't move. And then they move. And he's like, I thought I said don't move. So it's a very tense scene. And he even says, like, oh, sorry about this, Rebecca. By all rights, you're one of us. But until you're on our side, I'm going to have to treat you like one of them. And Rebecca is like, wait, no, please. Without the medicine, Weiss is going to die. And he's like, huh? Oh, the dying kid? What medicine are you talking about? And they're like, oh, I think it's this case. They open it up to the thing, assisted energy. And he's like, smash.
You want this can? Huh?
And then Shiki's like, how dare you? So he gets shot in the leg because he's like, I said stop moving. And the chapter just kind of gets darker from there.
It really does.
They're like, wait, we're Happy and Pino. And they're like, oh, I sold them to a junk dealer in town. And Hamura's like, what are you going to do with us? We weren't even trying to instigate it. It's because you were stalking our ship. And he's like, you know what? You're pretty cute. You know how you work to pay off your debt? Oh, yeah. Becca's just like, please, I'll do whatever you want. Just, like, let them go. I'll do anything. And Dracojo's is like, he breaks off the cuffs on Wise, who is essentially unconscious right now. And then he's like, cut his arm off. And the last shot of the chapter is Fi the Fire Guy holding up a giant knife. And the last panel is a bloody arm being severed. So, I don't really know what happened this week. We took a dramatically different turn from where I thought we were going.
Hey, here I put the characters in a situation where it looks like they're in really big trouble. Good job!
I'm not crazy high in the chapter because there's parts of Dracojo here that do come off very intimidating and scary, and then there are other parts where he's just every fairy tale, like, hero villain once more. Like, I know his whole thing is like, I'm not going to kill people because people still have a use, but it's another thing like, oh, I'm going to sell you into sex slavery, and I'm going to lick my gun because that's that's how crazy and creepy I am. And
it's definitely at odds with the image he had built up when he had the conversation with Rebecca earlier.
Yeah. So I'm not super crazy on every part of it, and I don't really get where we're going because, look, part of me is like, okay, we don't actually see the arm being severed. We see an arm with a shackle on it going in the air. Maybe something else happens, but then I'm like, maybe they are just cutting Wise's. I mean, his power is to use a big robot suit, so I guess theoretically he can have
but Chris, if his arm were severed, then that would have consequences that would definitely not get negated immediately later.
Yeah, it's something where I'm just like, it's kind of just like a weirdly dark and unpleasant chapter in a moment that felt like we were kind of like things looked bad, but I didn't think they were so hopeless that they couldn't have worked a way out of it or given our heroes time to regroup. Like, it's just kind of an unpleasant chapter to read.
It was definitely surprising, if nothing else.
Yeah. Definitely surprising.
All right. Let's move on to Guardian of the Witch.
I swear, the chapters get better. Not with this one, but after this, the chapters get better this week.
Chapter number 3, Outside World. Our heroes are outside. Hooray. Manafsa's like, I had no idea the world was this big. And then Nata says, okay, now that we're actually outside safely, I will tell you what I know of how to turn witches back into humans. So she says to Fafnir, I know that, you presume that I spent my time as Lady Manafsa's maid doing nothing. Well, you are wrong. I have been doing everything I could to find ways to investigate her condition and help her. Are you aware of the secret room in the basement of the rectory? I'm not. But basically it's a library that's in there, and so there were many tomes in there, but there wasn't a whole lot of information related to witches. But in one book there was a passage that was very intriguing. A retired witch is used as an advisor in Noir. So they're like, a retired witch, huh? And so what she concludes is that there are two major possibilities regarding the seed of evil. One is that it just stopped growing completely, so the witch was able to recover, or the other is that its growth at least slowed considerably. So if they were to go and speak with the retired witch in Noir, then they might be able to find a way to prevent Manafsa's death. Hooray! Let's go to Noir.
Mm-hmm.
We cut back to the...
and here's something I can definitely say and appreciate. This manga is being very clear and direct with its hero's journey. We have to get to Noir. That's where our goal is. Here's the way we have to get to Noir. Here are the likely things we're going to encounter along the way. It makes for a very clean and easy to understand journey.
And now we'll set up the first opponents we're going to have to face, basically, who are another Guardian Witch pair, Guardian Gen and Witch Ruli. Ruli Lirala. That must have been a real pain to decide what sounds were R's and what sounds were L's in that one.
That's where you flip a coin, I think, each time. You're like, whatever.
And her name will be Rulilira, because it would just be Rurirara.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's sort of like Zoro, where his surname Runora Zoro. I thank God it's based on someone actual, so we have some kind of context to go off of, because otherwise.
So the two of them are being sent out to recover Manafsa and Fafnir, or to kill them. And we learned that Ruli's magic is metal manipulation, which she uses in conjunction with Gen. I believe, that's what it is. Okay. So they set off. We also get a little bit of insight into, their contrasting personalities. Gen is very much just kind of jumps in before thinking, very confident in his own abilities, pretty arrogant. Ruli is much more thoughtful, thinks more about proper manners and how to behave and stuff. And Gen's just like, yeah, we're going to go kill him. All right. And Ruli's like, oh, well, all right. So, establishes them. We see that Fafnir killed an evil that had been camouflaged and attacked them. They come across a village, and then we get, a shot of this map where we basically learn that the series takes place in Great Britain. Mm-hmm. That is a map of Great Britain. So.
That means all the characters talk like this.
The voices in this series now.
We got to get ourselves to that village there, pip, pip, we do.
Just all of them talk that way. So then they put on their disguises. Fafnir refers to them as costumes, which makes Manafsa think that they're going to be dressed as a sexy nurse and sexy bunny girl. There's a couple of points in this series where there are very weird panel choices, I will say, in terms of not a lot of emphasis is put on a couple of lines that get spoken. There was that one, and then there was another one. oh gosh, I can't remember if it comes before or after. Okay, yeah, there's this one small comment that Ruli makes, which is a witch's guardian is asked to do the job because they have a bond of trust with their witch. If someone who doesn't have that bond tries to kill a witch, the shock and stress of it can cause the birth of an extremely powerful evil, so you can't kill her. So this is basically, our bonds of friendship will lead to power-ups thing. But it's all crammed in this one small panel. And you would think that with that it would be a much bigger thing with emphasis placed on it, a lot more attention paid to it, but it's not. But anyway, the princess and the samurai have a symbiotic relationship, which leaves one to power it up, and we need to explain this over the course of 5 more chapters before you get it. So anyway, the main trio put on, hoods and hats and stuff to disguise themselves as just regular travelers before heading into the village. Meanwhile, Gen and Ruli are making their way across the countryside much more quickly because they're using medical magic in order to transport themselves, and they're going after our heroes in order to hunt them down. And that's the end of the chapter.
Mm-hmm.
So, chapters now. Chris, do you want to keep reading this series?
Please no.
No. Okay. I could go either way, so I'm going to go with
this is one where I think that I admire everything being done here, and I wish them the best. No.
Okay.
I really just... Nah.
So now... this is either going to be a series that gets forgotten, or it's going to be like
no. It's going to run for 70. It's going to run for 700 chapters. This is the new big series. I was
the longer it goes on, the more awkward it's gonna be that we didn't pick up Demon Slayer. I mean, Guardian of the Witch. Yeah. So yeah, okay. Let's move on then instead to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, Chapter 4, Mash Van Dead and the Clean Sweep. It's a pun because there are brooms involved. We see...
shit, I get it.
Yeah. We see more silliness from Mash, who is now officially a part of Easton Magic Academy. Of course, there's an instructor who's telling them, like, oh, yes, you must imagine you are opening the lock as you infuse it with your magic energy. Now you try. And of course, Mash rips the padlock apart, and he's like, I opened the lock. Of course, he gets shouted at, and the professor says, this is a place to learn magic. You know that, right? Yes, but I'm not good with magic and spells. Well, why are you here?
I love his response. He's like, you're right. This is concerning. I shouldn't be here. Look, this series would not work unless Mash was so perfectly aware of the fact that he absolutely should not be here. That he's like, this premise I do not want to be a part of. I have no choice.
I just want to stay at home in peace.
I just don't want my dad to be killed, basically.
Then there's a really, really weird moment because a student who's sitting next to Mash reacts to him and is like, oh my God, this guy's bad news. And then Mash just goes, God is dead. Unprompted.
I don't know why. Like, what would prompt him to say that? But I fucking love that energy, man. Shit. Oh my God. I love this character.
So the student who was sitting next to Mash is like, all right, time to go to my room. Since this is a boarding school, I wonder who I'm rooming with. Wait a minute. Where's the door? And he looks behind him, and Mash has the door in his hands. And of course, they're roommates. So we're introduced to Mash's roommate, Finn Ames. And Mash is very nice. Is like, oh, hey, I'm Mash. This is all fairly new to me, but so I'll try not to cause any trouble for you. And he starts pointing to his muscles like, this is Kevin. This is Mike. This is Tom. It's like, Jesus, dude. But they're pretty nice to each other, despite Finn being kind of weirded out by Mash. Then Mash asks him, hey, how do you get to be the divine visionary of the academy? And basically, we get explained that it's like the school in Spy Family, where you have to achieve a certain number of coins, of gold coins, which you can get from everything from taking tests, extracurricular activities. After 3 terms, anyone with more than 5 gold coins enters the running as a candidate for the next Divine Visionary. But if you can't keep your grades up, you'll be expelled no matter how many coins you have. So Mash is just like, oh, this is going to be really bad. But Finn says, well, best of luck to you. And there's a note from the narrator saying Finn did not say, let's support each other. But Mash just says, you're a really great guy. And aw.
Yeah, it's like he didn't say let's support each other. Best of luck to you. Not that Mash noticed. Like, you're a really great guy. Okay, I love you, Mash.
So the next time we see them, the same instructor from before is leading a broom riding class. It's the exact same beginning as Harry Potter, where they try to summon their broomsticks. Between this and Wahlberg, this guy has definitely seen Harry Potter a few times. Like, there is no way that they have not.
Oh yeah, I think Harry Potter is enough of like sort of a universal kind of series at this point.
Also, just their uniforms with like the tie with the robe over it. That's like very Harry Potter movie kind of look
the
to.
Teacher kind of being McGonagall-esque, like an older woman kind of angle here.
So the students are doing the exact same thing that they do in Harry Potter, where they're hold the hand out over the broom that's lying on the ground, and you're like, come up to my hand. And so Mash tries to do this. All right, fly. Just stomps on the ground really hard, and it jumps up into his hands from the impact, and then he's like, fly. And they're like, that's cheating. You made it fly before you commanded it. So they're like, all right, guys. Okay, time trials now. So the guy who called out Mash before is like, how about we have a race? The loser has to obey the winner for as long as we're here. And Mash is like, yeah, okay. So, all right. On your marks. Get set. And Mash just seemingly teleports across the field. And they're like, what the fuck just happened? And they're like, oh my God, it's a world record. And it's even better. Because I just had the thought at first,
where he just ran across.
He ran.
Yeah.
But Finn is like, I saw what happened. When she said start, he threw the broom like a javelin, took off from the ground, and mounted the broom in midair. Did you ever hear about how Thor would fly in the comics? Because they reference it in the movies where he spins the hammer around and kind of throws it with the momentum, and the momentum carries him. Mm-hmm. Apparently, the way that it would work in the comics was right before he launched the hammer, he would actually let go of it, and then he would catch it. So he would throw it and immediately catch it, and that would carry him. And it's one of those things where it's like, doing that does nothing. You just need to let the momentum carry you. And that's how it is here. It's you did not need to throw the broom in order to do this. You could have just jumped while holding on to it.
I love the idea behind it is so stupid.
Oh, but of course the guy's like, you cheated. There's no way you did that. And Mash is like, oh, can't own up to your loss. So don't worry. I'll drop the bet. The guy gets still pissed off, but suddenly his mouth is stitched shut. My gosh. And a really creepy looking guy who looks actually a lot like Kyoichiro from Yozakura family. It's like, oh, I'm sorry for his behavior. He didn't mean to be rude. And everyone's like, Cavill's talking to him. Another celebrity name? So we've got Cavill here. So obviously it's like, oh, I don't know. Can we do a Geralt impression?
Wait, hold on. How are you pronouncing his name?
Cavill. Or Cavill.
Cavill. I was like, wait a minute.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Whatever.
Fuck.
So
there you go. That's the perfect time to do it. Fuck. Did you watch Witcher?
Oh yeah.
there's maybe no moment in television over the past year that has reached the perfect timing of the end of episode 3, where it's just him being like, "Wait, no, good sir, I have to give you something for saving me." He's like, I'll take the law of surprise then. And then just the queen like, "You stupid son of a bitch!" Bruh. Fuck.
So Cavill's, greets Mash, and he says, I'm Lord Cavill. Nice to meet you." And Mash is just like, "Royd Castle?"
I love it. It's the perfect follow-up. Everyone like, "Oh my god, no one, you can't mess with this guy. He'll tear anybody apart. Uh-oh, better not mess with him." First thing, "Hi, my name's Lloyd Cavill. Royd Castle." Fuck.
So Lloyd just, "You're kind of funny. Let's talk more after school. I'll be waiting here." And then he drags off the guy whose mouth he's stitched shut. And he's like, "Why did you have to lose like that? That was really pathetic. You couldn't follow orders. You looked like a loser in front of him." And he punches him so hard that like there's blood dripping from his knuckle afterward. And he just says, "Well, at least I found a good." Mash talks with Finn afterwards. And Mash is like, "Why is everyone so afraid of him?" And Finn explains, "Well, he's the son of a VIP from the Bureau of Magic. Even you have to know what the Bureau of Magic is, absolute in this world." And Mash is like, yeah, I know that." And Finn says, "If you stand against him, you'll get expelled because, he's in good with the Academy's vice principal. And I've been watching that happen since middle school. The torment doesn't end when you've quit. That's why everyone obeys him. They're scared." And we just kind of cut to after school. Mash is by himself in the kitchen. He's making his own cream puffs. Oh, look at him. He's got a little apron on with frills on it and stuff. He's having a good time. He's like, "Oh, it's fun to make cream puffs on my own." I feel like I'm forgetting something. The field.
That juxtaposition of like after school. Cream puffs are really fun to make on your own. It's just the guy, like the bully in the park, be like, "Where the fuck is he?"
So yeah, imagine, to go back to Harry Potter, the very beginning of the series where Draco's like, "I challenge you to a duel. Meet me after school." And Harry and Ron have to sneak out in order to go and try and find him, and it's a trap to try and get them expelled. And instead, Mash just fucking forgets about this stupid cock measuring contest because he was like going to make cream puffs.
Oh, so good.
I really like this series because, again, it keeps on doing it keeps on being funny in different ways, but it's all tied to the kind of person that Mash is. And he's just this guy who's just minding his own business while all these assholes try and mess with him. And yeah. All right, Yozakura family. So
Hey.
The villain's flashback to explain. Remember how someone important to him died? Yeah, someone important to him died. It was his daughter, I guess.
Yeah.
Well,
she calls him daddy, so I hope it's his daughter. I pray to God it's his daughter.
Yeah. He goes home to celebrate her birthday, and he got her a cake. Isn't that sweet? And she's like, "You're acting weird, Daddy, because you dress like Elton John." He's like, "Oh, come on, it's well, I wanted to jazzed up a bit, or it's that house stuff. This outfit, it's that stuff you're into, house, hip hop. Isn't this the style?" And she's like, "No, it's not."
Imagine being so out of touch with your daughter that you were like, "Yeah, the kids say they wear giant rainbow afros and heart glasses and enormous overcoats along." I was about to say, I was like, they wear rainbow wigs and heart eyeglasses. It's like, I saw some of the pictures from people at the Grammys. That's actually not that absurd of a thing. He might have been on to more than I was led to believe.
But he's like, I'm sorry, I don't really understand these things. And she's like, listen, I know you've been, look, I was just being kind of a brat because I was lonely because you've been away so much since mommy died. So thanks for coming home. Let's have the cake. And, but she says, if you're going to surprise me, you should do a better job at it because, you blew it when you sent me that present. And he's like, what are you talking about? Oh, the present that has been sent for her. It was a bomb. And the bomb fucking killed the little girl. Well, damn. And of course, Kuriri reacts to this. He's holding his dead daughter in his arms while crying and vowing vengeance. It's like, do you guys really need to stop this guy? Like, he's killing people. You're hitmen.
And I also enjoy how they justify it too, where they're like, the people who did it couldn't send killers after me because word would have gotten to me, so they had to use something sloppy like a bomb. And I lived because of that, but my daughter wouldn't. Like I do like how
to be. Yeah,
it's very cool. It's very cool.
And so he's been eliminating people this whole time. They're responsible for it. Tayo tries to attack him, but he just gets knocked away because hey, those triplet spies are still there. And so Kuriri says, "Look, you know the pain of losing your family. I don't want to hurt a fellow suffer needlessly, so if you back off, I'll tell you everything I know about your family." But Tayo just says, "You don't need to tell me, because I understand your feelings and I want to know about that accident, but more than that, I don't want anyone else to die, and that's all. That's why I'm a hitman."
Yeah, I mean, it's a very shonen thing of like, I, as a spy / hitman, will fight against you to prove that my way of not killing people is the right way to do it.
He does have a stun gun, I guess.
He does. And it does fit. And I do like the idea that we're kind of setting up this thing where it's Tayo going up against a guy who isn't really like an unsympathetic person,
He's a dark reflection of him. Because someone important to him died, and so he responded to that by deciding to get revenge, as opposed to Tayo, who decided to protect someone important to him. So, then Sui shows up and slashes the ground, and he and the triplets fall through it. And I'm just thinking to myself, if you could do that, why couldn't you just defeat them? Because he slashes the floor that encompasses all four of them, and none of them react to it or get out of the way. And I'm like, why couldn't you just beat them then? Anyway, whatever. So they're splitting up the fight so that Sui's going to take on the three triplets while Tayo takes on Kuriri. That's what happens. Samurai 8! Hey, remember how Hachimaru learned that he should treat Anne better? Well, he's going to learn that again! Chapter 38. Anne and Hachimaru and Goku. This is a chapter about Anne and Hachimaru and Goku. There's a little bit of discussion at the beginning about their plans and stuff. Who cares? Hachimaru's like, I've been training. Maybe I should ask, what should I ask Anne to cook for me today? Hey, Anne. Oh, but Anne's been watching Goku cook. And she's like, oh, wow, that's great. Thank you for cooking. And everyone's like, it's so delicious, Goku. This is great. Why aren't you eating, Hachimaru? I'm not hungry. Hey, Goku, come train with me. Let's fight. Hey, I want to let you know a Samurai of Fate works with a Princess of Fate, and I am her Samurai of Fate. And Sanja's just like, well, he better not lose now. And he does. God.
It's so... the entire chapter could just be summed up by, like, fucking this enormous need to dick measure against Goku from Hachimaru, who is just overwhelmingly jealous of the fact that An is spending time with another guy. And it's just so shameless and stupid. Like, I don't know if this is meant to be a big character growth moment for Hachimaru, because as you kind of said, we've already kind of been over this to a certain extent.
Yeah.
The weird, like, angle of, like, oh, is it a love triangle or something like that? Or, like, there's a more interesting story in Goku being like, hey, I'm a samurai without a princess.
Yeah.
That really sucks. You're taking it for granted. Yeah. Like, there's some interesting stuff there. wish we didn't have to follow the most unlikable person in this entire scenario.
It's just one of those things where it's like, you could have this story be told without having Hachimaru go backwards in the progress that they had made. Because it felt like he had made a big step before when he was, not talking over Anne and interrupting her and stuff like that. Was acknowledging, hey, you need to listen to her and pay mind to her feelings and stuff. And he just seems to have forgotten that, because now he's like, he gets frustrated and he yells at her when he loses. And he's snapping at her, and then he just goes and apologizes, like, hey, I'm sorry. And she's like, it's fine. Oh, you forgive me? Great. Want to go outside? No. And so Goku is just like, hey, you're not very good at talking to girls, are you? Just, like that, the way that she talked to you, you're not really interpreting exactly what she's actually, feels right now. You can't just do whatever you want just because, you bowed politely and stuff like that. And he says, hey, you need to be a proper person before you can be a proper samurai. And he goes over the point that you mentioned before about, samurai and princesses and how it sucks to have no princess. Then after they've had this conversation, Goku is like, hey, I made a thing. And everyone's like, wow, Goku, it's an amazing thing. And Hachimaru's like, you just made a tree and some flowers. And it's like, well, no, because you see, you can't read another person's mind, and that's why you do flower arranging. It helps to express yourself, and then it lets others see what's in your heart. And Hachimaru just like, so he's just showing off, fine. He told you already what you're doing wrong.
No, he has to talk to everybody, including Sen's fucking princess, who has been in this series for like 20 chapters and just now has finally been given a name.
I have a character, by the way.
And I don't know, why is Sen the Silent still around? I don't get it.
I don't know.
Wasn't this thing like, I had to find that dog samurai, and he's there. He's right there.
Well, and it makes sense why both Anne and Hachimaru go to talk with, the other. Hachimaru goes to get some insight from another princess, and Anne gets insight from another samurai about their bond. And they both say, like, yeah, there was an awkwardness between us before, but, yeah. And then there's this whole thing because Anne's like, I feel like Hachimaru just sees me as a princess of fate. He doesn't see me as me. And Sen's like, during the battle on planet Kenga, I sensed a special connection between the two of you.
What wise sage advice you've now offered me.
And Anne's just like, well, but it gets even worse because she's like, well, but I think that might have just all been from me. And Sen's like, in that case, you should go and find out for yourself. Thanks.
I love Sen this out. Like, how did he get this nickname? Was someone one day just like, wow, you really dropped such great nuggets of wisdom. Few words, but such wise meaning behind all of them. Yeah. He's like, I am very wise.
I mean, at least Kirikou tells Hachimaru, I have seen a lot of samurai and princesses be separated because they failed to see the true person on the other end. And Hachimaru actually says, well, what happens to a princess who loses her samurai? And she's like, she forms a bond with a new samurai, and that's it. So it's nice to have that thing where it's like, okay, Anne and Hachimaru are not forever bound. It's something like, Hachimaru, you need to actually figure this out because she can actually get sick of you and decide to leave. But he actually learns from the conversation, and Anne just kind of like is told, go talk to him, I guess. Like,
she's so like frustrated. She's like, oh, the princess is talking to somebody. Well, I'll go talk to Sen the Silent. I'm sure he has equally good advice to give. And he's like, oh, you try giving him a little something? Like, what?
What? I don't know if you guys, how old are you kids? Do kids fuck when they're 12? Like,
I don't,
Send the silence. Gives a lecture.
I've taken a vow of silence. Just stop talking.
I never talk. You'll never hear me talk about anything. I don't open my mouth for anything. I never talk. I can't talk to you because I can't talk.
I can't talk. I gotta leave right now. I can't talk. I gotta go. I gotta go.
I can't talk because the thing is I can't talk. So I'm sending the silence. Imagine, like, I'm just imagining that, like, Send the Silent delivering, like, really bad personal development lectures to kids. Like, okay, so you guys are, what, 11? Yeah. So when she asks you not to do butt stuff to her, just, you know, like, oh, you guys know what butt stuff is, right? So...
It's like, you guys
are all fucked, right?
You guys are 11 or 12. You've been around the block, so... Now, most of you at this point probably have 6 or 7 STDs. That's fine. You know what? You work with you got. I've got some bingo cards you guys can...
Mr. the Silent, what's an STD? I can't talk. I'm Send the Silent. I don't talk.
Now she mentioned it. I'm sort of out of silence. I have to get going. Right. Hold on. Everybody stay silent while I call my Uber to pick me up. But I don't talk.
Uber, you use the app. Why do you know that?
Oh, you're old enough to know how to use Uber, but not to fuck each other? Oh, okay. I guess kids, they know everything. Fucking prudes. I don't talk.
It just, like, brings up topics that are really outside of their nature, and then when they ask him what they are, he's just like, I can't,
I guess that I should get right down to it. I don't really, The power was inside you all along, kids. I get going.
Why? I'm silent. I can't talk. So Hachimaru and meet up to talk finally, and I do appreciate that they get over this point really quickly because Hachimaru is like, I want to know why, you know, this is happening. You know, I mean, you've been acting strange since Goku showed up, and it's like Goku doesn't have anything to do with it. It's, you know, look, I like you, Hachimaru, but I don't want you to see me as just a princess. I want you to see me. And Hachimaru's like, well, I don't think of you that way. And also gets self-conscious. She says, I worry that if I talk to you about this, you would be annoying. And she's like, no, I wouldn't. And Anne says the oath you swore is to protect the princess who makes you stronger. My brother always saw me for the person that I am. So they're actually hitting this point that we saw in the flashback before, because nobody else knew about that. So yeah, there are some good parts of this chapter, but it's disappointing to see Hachimaru heading backwards. That said, I infinitely prefer this to the bullshit, we're in a virtual reality realm and you've got to level up your abilities because the samurai god showed up. And
love is a mechanic in this universe. It's quantifiable and measurable in many ways, as demonstrated by this VR program. Without a proper amount of love, you will not be able to activate the Ultra Mega Cat Sword move.
Yeah. Zipman, Chapter 10.
Zip.
Kagami wins.
Yeah, I mean, that is kind of the chapter.
Wins. The flame head guy keeps on summoning bigger and bigger attacks, and Kagami just walks through them. Rips off, punches the fuck out of the guy. And, you know, Kagami is silent throughout the course of this entire thing. The guy inside of the flamehead suit says, you want to know the chairman's location, right? I'll tell you. I mean, it's useless to go after him, but I'll tell you. But then we get this shot from far outside, zooming in, as suddenly a katana comes flying through the air and kills the guy. All right.
Yeah, but it's pretty fucking brutal. They just murder this dude straight up.
There is a note attached to the sword which reads, thanks for your hard work, the chairman. Kagami goes back outside. He's carrying Sheena. He's saved her. And she's like, oh, thank you. But Kagami is just walking away. And she's like, Jackman? And we get a shot of, it seems that the Zipman is crying because, of course, Koshiro's gone. He's imprisoned, and he's definitely not coming back at all. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the series is getting canceled. It feels very obvious that that's what's going to happen. And it's
Feels like this would not be happening now if it weren't going to be canceled. So
no, and it's unfortunate because the series has a lot of bright points, but because it's down this road, we have to lose those. Like, I was like, man, it's kind of a bummer that like the main character's energy was one of the biggest points of the series, but he has to be all sad and angsty now, so we can't even get that after like his first big victory or anything like that. He's just gonna be silent and mopey the whole time. Like, shit, I can't even really enjoy this.
Yeah. I feel as though this would have been a good thing to have happen, you know, after they'd had a few actual adventures together, so you would actually feel the loss. I like the way that this is done, but it's a matter of the way that the series is paced and the way things have been laid out that really takes away from this. So,
all right, let's move on to We Never Learned. Question 147: the ephemeral mermaid sprinkles into the promised pizza bet, part 6. So, all the characters arrive at school where Iruka has written a goodbye on the graduation to everybody, and everyone's like, wait, what's happening? Yeah, she has to leave because of the storm, so her flight is going to leave before noon. And that's the situation. Yuiga's kind of just like, oh, yeah. We cut to Iruka, who's at the airport, and they're like, are you really okay with missing graduation? She's like, yeah, I mean, I wanted to graduate with everybody, but what else can I do? So, Yuiga goes to the bathroom and is splashing water in his face because he's like, I guess this is what's for the best, you know? She said she didn't need a response. Whatever fucking Kirisu's sister was, she said it would be fatal, and I don't want to get in the way of her dreams. So she...
But why do you look so sad about it, Yuiga?
Yeah. So he leaves the bathroom, and Ogata's there, and there's a small boob joke, and then she immediately is like, hey, can I kiss you? And he's like, what the fuck? It's so sudden. I mean, I told you before, a kiss should really mean something. And she's like, well, what if it really does mean something? And he's like, no, it's not the point. I mean, you shouldn't. And she just says, who do you love? Why didn't you respond to Iruka? Yuiga is stunned. He's like, I didn't want to get in the way of what's best for Iruka. And Ogata's like, what's best for Iruka? Are you the one who decides that? Or should she? To hell with knowing what's best for someone else, right? And she walks away, and he's like, wait.
Well, she kisses him on the cheek.
Yeah. And he's like, wait, what was that? She's like, oh, it was just a joke. I'm totally dense when it comes to understanding people's feelings. And then Fumino shows up. And she's like, I didn't mean to overhear, but did you figure it out? Do you really know what do you want to do right now? And they cut back to that moment of the two of them in bed talking about, like, find something you really want to do one day. I'll do everything to support you, my little bro. And he breaks down. He starts crying. He says, I want to see Iruka. And Fumino thinks to herself, like, yeah, I'm sorry. That day, I was really jealous of you, thinking back to what we saw a couple chapters ago where she almost kissed Yuiga while he was in bed. And she says, I probably would have held on to that feeling and just been bitter, but, those words you said were, let's all go after our feelings, that was a tremendous gift. So now I can be true to my heart. And she says, so, if that's what you want, I'll accept your response with a smile. And I'll support you with everything I've got. So they're like, all right, let's fucking get you to the airport. Clearly we know what's going on. And they're about to get going when a bunch of teachers are like, hey, what the fuck are you guys doing? You gotta get to the graduation. And in one of the coolest moments, the two of them just immediately start asking the teachers really complicated things about the subjects they were really good at. So Yuiga's like, I have to ask you about one of these super complicated math formulas. And Fumino's like, oh, take a look at my graduation speech. And it's like,
I guess I can take a look. Ah!
So they do that, and they're like, hey, we're holding them off. You do you, Yuiga. And Yuiga said, we cut back to the very beginning where Yuiga was like, I know I can make you both very happy, so please do it with me. And the two of them say, you really brought us a lot of happiness, so now it's our turn to make you happy. And with that, Yuiga runs off after Uruka at the airport.
So it seems like we're hitting the conclusion a lot faster than I suspected that we would, because this one chapter seems to resolve the love plot.
Yeah.
All at once, basically.
This was the chapter where you're just like, oh, okay, we've decided which girl it is.
I was surprised when this happened. It's nice, I will say, because it, there's a little bit of heartbreak, but everyone is still friends and they're happy for each other. So now we're getting that big, romantic comedy thing. It's like, I gotta get there before the girl leaves forever on her plane. And that's it. And that seems to be it. That seems to be the conflict. It's no longer what girl is Yuiga end up with. It's are Uruka and Yuiga going to end up together. And that's basically it. Mm-hmm. But it was nice to have this chapter focusing on the three of them, the three characters that we started off with, and seeing this, cementing and kind of celebration of their friendship and what they mean to each other together. I do think it's a shame that we've seen some characters go through as much development as they have, and it feels honestly as though Ogata has devolved over the course of the series. Because, like you said, boob joke, and there's not a whole lot that really actually happens with her in this conversation. There's a lot more of a feeling of closure when it comes to Fumino in terms of resolving the feelings that she's been having. The fact that the way Uruka, was kind with her and happy with her, admitting her feelings for Yuiga when she had been carrying those inside of her because she was afraid of hurting her friends. And now that all comes resolved as, because that happened, she's able to just be happy for them. Whereas with Ogata, she's just going like, I am still a robot. I have difficulty expressing emotions. And it doesn't really feel as if she's really made a whole lot of progress, honestly.
I have a slightly different interpretation. I feel like this was a scene that was meant to show that she has changed because she's the one who picks up on the fact that Yuiga is clearly kind of convincing himself of things and not taking Uruka's thoughts into consideration completely here when she's like, are you the one who gets to decide what's best or should Uruka? And I thought it was very poignant that she's the one who kind of says something that nuanced of an opinion when it comes to this relationship.
Because she's usually the person who has difficulty reading people's emotions. I get that. Okay. But my thoughts on her as a whole still kind of feel like,
Yeah, I still think she maybe doesn't have the same level of closure of Fumino because it doesn't feel as though her feelings are completely resolved. She kisses Yuiga and then sort of is like, I wish you the best, but it doesn't feel like we've fully closed the loop there, but I think we're leaving it to maybe expand something in the future. So, or maybe we're just kind of meant to be like, hey, we didn't want to repeat ourselves twice with both girls being like, oh, well, okay, because of these things, I'm okay with letting my feelings with Yuiga go kind of unfulfilled or whatever.
Bass Forever points out in the chat, Ogata will get her closure when she hooks up with Sekijo.
I could taste the pizza now. After this chapter, I was
so
really
Chris,
like,
that is a good point.
I was like, she's open.
Now that it seems as though Ogata is not hooking up with Yuiga.
Cool.
Cool, man.
Oh, I can't wait. Any second now.
I'm sweating. Oh. Damn it. I should have been rooting for Ogata this whole time.
You're like, come on. Stay robotic. Never understand people's feelings.
So, Chris, is there a pizza place you want me to order from for you?
Hey, we haven't gotten there yet. We don't know. But I do have play. I'll give you those numbers later.
You've had it written down for 2 years.
It's been waiting all this time.
Oh, my God. All right.
I love this chapter.
Dr. Stone, Z equals 139. First dream. Time to get stoned. So, of course, last chapter, the Y Man was setting the diameter of the Earth 1 second in some sort of effort to trigger the petrification device, but it said it with Senku's voice. Gasp! So everyone's like, "What's going on here? What is?" And I like how Taiju's completely like, "Well, Senku would never be a bad guy." So he says, like, "Well, maybe it's a recording," and Senku's like, "Well, but I've never said that." Ever. So people are trading ideas and stuff like that, and Ryusu just says, like, theories without evidence are no better than boorish delusions. Why man is hostile toward us? He will make contact again, allowing us to get to the bottom of this. And so, very calmly, breaks that down. And then shortly afterward, they get another message. It's the same thing repeated. And Ukyo, hey, you get to do something important with your listening skills. He says it is literally the exact same as before. It's the same pitch, it's the same tone, and you know what? It actually dips into the uncanny valley like a Vocaloid's. It's a synthetic voice. So it's like, well, how is this possible? And Ryusu's like, well, we shouldn't be asking how, though. We should be asking why. Why send a message with an artificial voice? And if we answer that, that could help us expose who it is and where they are. And so Chrome says, well, hey, Senku, when you put Ibarra in displays, you petrified him with a transmitted command. So maybe Y-Man imitated your voice based on that. Basically thinking, well, if you transmitted the voice, maybe Y-Man was listening in, and because of that, they decided to model the command based off of that voice. The more they talk about synthetic voices, though, it makes me worry more and more, like, oh no, please don't let it be that robot from the spin-off that's the villain. Especially because of the direction they end up taking things at the end of the chapter. But anyway. Soyuz recognizes the shape of the Medusa from somewhere with his super memory. Kohaku brings over people with battle potential and is like, hey, we should train for the inevitable battle against Y-Man. And Kirisame is there. And Kohaku and Kirisame trade blows briefly. They're pretty much sparring. And Kirisame actually compliments Kohaku on her strength, saying, oh, you must have been holding back against me before. And Kohaku's like, nah, I was wearing a slutty dress and that sucked to fight in. So
there's been this saying that kind of Kohaku, she fights very acrobatically, but the manga has always had to be very graceful about the fact that she's wearing a dress, so all these poses has to have like a piece of clothing or something like that. Cover up the fact that she's not fucking wearing any underwear.
Gotta talk about Kirisame's freaking nightie that she wears all the time.
So bad. Kirisame just has one long fucking ponytail thing. Or like fucking shit on her back. That's the only thing they have to fucking try to cover up the fact that chick's just wearing nothing right now.
Eventually, we're gonna, get a chance to like ask, I don't know, Inuyagaki, like, so what's with the clothing that these characters wear? Like, listen, I knew what I was getting into when I teamed up with Boichi, all right?
Hey, let the man have his work.
He turns out good product, but he kind of goes stir crazy a bit if you don't let him draw boobs and butt. So I just leave him to his own devices. Anyway. Kirisame is a good fighter even without the petrification device. That's the point. Then we get Soyuz and Taiju. They pull out the statue that they managed to get off of the ocean floor. The guy has a detached arm, and when Soyuz brings the arm out, it's like, oh, this is it. And look, there's a symbol that looks like the petrification device. Kind of. It's pretty rough. So they managed to get him all together. And Reese was like, okay, well, he shouldn't be too eroded, so we should be fine. And they revive him, and sure enough, yeah. And he looks basically like he would be like an ancestor of Moses. Because as we learn, like, it's been a while that he's been petrified. Not nearly so long as all the regular people, of course. But yeah. So he's been revived, and he's like, oh, and so he says, I am in your debt, unknown traveler. Let me express my gratitude. And dude starts acting like an old school samurai. He ties his hair back in a ponytail. He gets down on his knees in order to thank Senku. But then he happens to look over and spots Ginro trying to run away from training. And he rushes through Kirisame and Kohaku, grabs Ginro protectively and calls him Lord. And he apologizes for having not been by his side and says, "These brigands shall not have their way with you." And everyone's like, "That's Ginro. That's our resident sleazebag." So Matsukaze, the samurai guy, basically recognizes Ginro from some distant relative of his from the past. And Ginro's like, "You should still treat me as your master, though, like I'm his reincarnation or something." So Matsukaze, being from further in the past than anyone else in the Petrification Kingdom, he says that once this island was peaceful, but then disaster befell us, that which you call the petrification device, a great number of them rained down from the heavens as if in a nightmare. And so Ryus was like, "Oh, so the source of everything is from above." So they managed to assemble this big-ass antenna. And then the next time that Y-Man sends them a transmission, they're able to eventually calculate that where the signal is coming from. And so everyone's like, okay, well, they're not on the surface of the Earth. They're not in the atmosphere. So Kaseki is like, "So you're saying they're really far away?" And Senku says, "Well, actually, the Earth's rotation has us moving through space. So if we can get a hold of the baseline length, blah, blah, blah." A lot of words. Essentially, the signal's not from that far away. And so it turns out that the signal is coming from a few 100,000 kilometers away on the moon! So they're like, so the signal's coming from the moon. And then Gen's like, "Wait a minute. Are you saying..."
I do love that he's like, "We've done it so many times. I know exactly what you're about to suggest. I just can't believe you're going to do it."
And Senku just says, "We're going to the moon." Big 2-page spread, Senku's face at one side, moon in the middle, the fucking space shuttle on the... Well, not the space shuttle, but the moon rocket thing on the right. So, yeah. Dr. Stone's going to the moon.
You know what? And I love it. This was such the right chapter to do this on after we just had our big, like, part 2 or part 3 over. Now start part 4. Like, what a fucking awesome hype moment to be like, what's the first thing we establish in this new part? We're going to the motherfucking moon. Like, all right, let's fucking do this. All right.
So, yeah, it's been Senku's dream to go into space. We saw it in the big flashback that explained how important science was to him, that he has dreamed of this all his life. But who knew that he would have to go into space in order to save the world, Chris? This was absurd, but I loved it.
Fantastic.
All right, time to get some people angry. Chainsaw Man, Chapter 58. Yutaro Kurose. So, we begin in a parking lot. Fender bender happens. The guy leans out of the car, is like, "You hit my car!" And it's one of the Chinese assassin's demon girls. And she goes, "Halloween!" And the guy's like, "Halloween?" She's like, "Halloween!" And he's like, and the guy's just like, "Halloween! Halloween, Halloween, Halloween!" And then they walk off, the assassin and her demon girls in tow. And they're like, "Look, sushi! Let's go have sushi, Lady Chuanzi." And they go into the restaurant, and the chef is like, "Oh, welcome." And then the zombie girl is like, "Halloween!" He's like, "What are fiends doing here?" "Halloween! Halloween! Halloween!" I don't like this character.
Well, I like that we kind of seem to subtly establish. I think she has some form of mild hypnosis that she puts people on because then they start saying Halloween.
Yes.
So I like that this group are all just fucking monster, like not literally monsters. Well, I mean they are literally monsters, but they all are essentially like crooked in some way. Like she's this weird creature who only says Halloween anymore, who like brainwashes people. The one with the big hair tie, as we'll kind of establish, like just says unpleasant things that kind of ruins things around people.
Yeah.
The one with the handcuffs is just eating fucking plates. The other one's just a corpse. They're all like genuinely very unpleasant people to be around, it seems like.
Yes.
And you kind of see why Kwang-si seems so fucking beleaguered all the time.
Yes. But the Halloween girl is fucking annoying. And that is all that I care about.
That's fair.
She annoys me and I hate her. So yeah. That happens. We see them kind of eating a bit. One of the girls starts eating the plates, and the girl with the mouth in her hair is like, "No, those aren't edible." And Jumanji's just like, "Chew your food before you swallow." that's all.
She doesn't care.
So we cut over to the third brother, who looks down at an image of the three characters that they replaced, and it says, "Hey, next time you're in Tokyo, let's go." Well, it's actually not the three characters, I don't think. Anyway, yeah, is it?
I think it's two of them. I thought one of them, like the
one
girl,
of them is.
I think the girl in the photo was one of them, and I think
because she's got the scar. Yeah. But so there's a note on the back saying, "Hey, next time you're in Tokyo, let's go swimming again, and phone me at this number." So the third brother disguises himself as Kurose, the one who had his other brother had been disguised as when he got hit by the car before. He goes and meets with this guy's friend, and so they drink and they talk together and stuff like that. And so the fake Kurose says, "Hey, you didn't get any calls or hear from anyone today, like from your parents or your friends." "No, nobody calls me except my boss and my mom anymore." "So yeah, you're in Tokyo. You didn't get a hotel room or nothing though." And there's just a really nice little touch of there's just single frame flashback. There's police stationed outside of hotels, so he can't go anywhere where in order to check in because police will investigate him. So he hung out with this guy's friend instead. Cool. But then the guy's like, "Hey, shouldn't you, stay with like your girlfriend, Misa? Are you two, having a fight?" And he's like, yeah. And there's, more pictures of, there's like, Kurose hang out with his girl and their dogs. There's a shot of Kurose as a kid hang out with his mom. There's a shot of when Kurose was a kid and he and this guy Tomono were on a soccer team together and stuff like that. And the guy's just like rattling off, the guy's backstory, like, "Oh, it's like, don't you have all these people you could have hung out with instead of me?" And Kurose just suddenly says, "Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so, what the hell am I doing?" And basically he's just overwhelmed by like, "Oh, we killed this guy who had this life because we wanted to make money." It's a really effective scene with him as he just has this breakdown.
Maybe it was all a long con that we got introduced to all these assassins who seem super interesting, and I was like, these three brothers are fucking boring. And by the end of it, I'm gonna be like, the one brother was the only interest. Like he was way more interested than everybody else. He had depth.
Well, because you would think that, this is setting up like, okay, this is this guy, he's going to be Kurose from now on. He's going to take over this guy's life and escape this world of assassination and stuff like that. But then the two of them are, sleeping in the same room together. And his friend is like, "Listen, I'm going to quit my job. So, hey, why don't you, start up a clothing store with me? And I'll foot the bill for the startup. If you stick with this devil hunter thing, you're going to get eaten one day, like your brother did. So, you should look after your parents before you die. What would your brother say if he saw you acting like this?" And Kurose fake Kurose gets an image of his two dead brothers looking at him, and he says, "We're immortal. Why? Because we're ruthless, soulless, and emotionless. So don't be afraid. A pro always gets the job done." And his friend just kind of looks at him. He's like, "What, do you really say something that cool?"
Like they're kind of drunk too, so like, shit, it's pretty dope.
This is a really cool scene. I love the way that this plays out, that this, cowardly, uncomfortable with killing brother goes on this thing after he freaks out and he runs away, but then he gets this thought of, I have to do this now, and he's more determined to kill Denji than ever. It's a really interesting way to play a villain. So. And then the German Santa Claus walks through a crowd of people on the street, and he seemingly brainwashes, infects them all with something, so he's got a horde of, like, zombies or something following after him now.
Puppets. They're all puppets. They have, like, the puppet lines by their mouths.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
He's
You're
turned
right.
them into his own little puppets. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, all the pieces are kind of in place, and it's looking pretty cool. All right, let's talk about Seven Deadly Sins then. What is the chapter that... hold on, fucking Crunchyroll's...
342.
Crunchyroll's
Victory
been
Cry.
Shit all day. What a weird chapter this is.
It is.
Assuming I can actually get it to load. There we go. All right, yeah. 342 Victory Cry. So Kate Sith is there, and they're like, we gotta fight him. They kind of beat him last time, but he's just reforming again. And he's like, everyone dies eventually. Like, even if I don't destroy it, even if the Demon Lord doesn't destroy it, something else will. Everyone dies one day. Everything comes to an end. I am inevitable. And,
inevitable.
Big monster villain saying that they are inevitable has been provenly going 100% correct in the past year of pop fiction, or pop culture. So I'm feeling good things for Kate Sith. Lodius is like, enough chit chat, let's get him. And Kate Sith narrows his eyes and then opens them really big. Flash! So, to sum up very quickly, the next 17 pages don't happen.
It's all a dream!
It's all this hypnosis thing, essentially, that happens where they defeat Kate Sith by freezing him in time. And everyone's like, well, as long as we work together, everything's going to be A-okay. And Melodious marries Elizabeth, and they have a big celebration. And they talk about how they're like, oh, well, Elaine's pregnant with child. So, the Bond's not going to be at the wedding. And Diane and King have gone off to the fairy world. So they're over there. So they haven't all been able to make it over here. But we're all still together here in this moment. And then it cuts even further along, and they're like, oh, Bond's died, yeah. And Diane and King still haven't come back, and it's Elizabeth on her deathbed, and she's like, well, I won't be reborn again, but I'm so glad I get to spend this last day with you. And I was just like, holy shit, was I right when I said this was the next chapter?
I saw this happening, when they literally just well, he's frozen now, let's leave. Yeah. And then they just starts happening so quickly. I'm like, yeah, there's no way this is fucking real.
It's very strange. But then they're like, uh-oh, big problems happen. Keith Palug is free again. And Keith sees see, the rest are all dead. And it's too bad. I guess you had to fight me all alone. But Melodious' friendship breaks the curse. Everyone's like, don't be sad. We'll be here with you. And they're right. So Melodious wakes up, and he's like, oh, shit. Well, that was fucking weird. And Kate Palug's like, it's futile. I will eat Arthur, and then I will be unified with chaos and swallow everything. And Arthur says, that's it. I've figured it out. How to defeat you. And that's where we end the chapter.
Yeah. So only Meliodas and Arthur are not currently under the effects of this illusion hypnosis thing, seemingly. So, this whole sequence has been paced very strangely, and this chapter did not do that any favors in terms of doing this whole thing this whole illusion thing in a single chapter. So you're put in the illusion and then it's gone in the same sitting. So it's very odd. Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for something to happen to either pull us into this sequence of events or for it to just end, because it keeps on feeling as though it's on the verge of like it's done and now everything's wrapped up and the series is done forever. Whereas in the previous thing, the stuff with the Demon King returning and stuff like that, once like they got the explanation of the curse is still in place because the Demon Lord is reviving and stuff, then it's like, all right, now we've got this thing and we've got to go and resolve that. And now stuff is going to happen before we can actually finish things off. Whereas this, it feels like because they've killed Cathbalug so many times and he just keeps on coming back, it just feels like, okay, which of these ones is going to stick so then we can all go home? Like, so.
Yeah.
All right. Promised Neverland, chapter 167. This way, demons. So the demons are kind of bad at their jobs.
I mean, we can sum this chapter up way quicker. We only have so much time left.
They round them up into a single room.
All the demons into a room.
They round them up into a single room, break their masks, and gas them. And that is basically what happens. Because they're very bad at their jobs. And now the kids are going after Peter Rodri. That is basically it.
Yeah, I can appreciate that the kids found a way to still be kind of creative. And this wasn't just like, we shot you a bunch of times and we won. Like, they still had to actually come up with a plan and utilize it. It's just... Fuck, man, the bad guys seem so lame in this series right now. They just seem so fucking lame.
Well, especially because there's this whole thing from one of them who's like, find them and kill them. I will never forget the humiliation they brought upon me with that escape 2 years ago. We are the highest grade farm, Gracefield. And I'm like, oh, okay. You were working at the farm 2 years ago. What's your name?
And there's like, they also kind of waste what should have been a super cool moment because Gilda at one point falls and they're like, oh no, she's going to get caught by the demons. And then Ash shows up and it's like, all right, that could have been saved for a much cooler moment than like the 8th smallest panel in one page halfway through a chapter that doesn't really feel climactic.
Yeah. There's also a part where right at the beginning when they start to clash where Emma's like, let's start this game of tag. And she and Ray and Norman and Jillian are rushing in and one of the demons swings at her and Emma jumps like 20 feet over his head by the looks of it. So it's just like, God, it's supposed to be like they're, outwitting them and they've got guns, not like Emma can jump 20 feet.
Emma has super legs. Didn't they establish that? She got what was the Shengong Wu that the mantis flip coin. She has the mantis flip coin. There was that's what she wished for from the
All right.
demon.
If this series had been about them fighting the demons by collecting the Shengong Wu, it would gain an additional star rating from me.
Yeah, like we're gonna see Peter Rattray show up, and then hashtag Ray's gonna be like, "Fast of Tabby Wong," and punch him in the dick and break his penis.
Orb of tsunami, ice.
That's how the series ends. Right fist of Tabby Wong, Peter Rattray in the penis, and it ends.
I've got all the best Shengong Wu.
I am the best. I am the Raymundo of this series.
What if Ray just like started carrying around random shit in his pockets and was calling it Shengong Wu? So he's like, look, it's the man in flip coin. And he tries to do a backflip and falls over a table.
Like, Ray, that's just a buffalo nickel. No, it's the minus flip coin. You can't take that. You have to defeat me in a Shaolin showdown.
All right, what's the challenge? You have to be hashtag Ray. I win again.
Whoever can think back furthest into their memories. Oh, too bad you don't have baby memories.
I'm older than you, Ray. So I remember back further. No! That's cheating!
It's bullshit!
All right. One Piece. Oh, man. One Piece chapter 971 is so good. Sentence to boil. So we get a little look into Oden's household. Momonosuke is asking, hey, mother, why are we in danger? And Toki's like, because your father is a great man and you are one day meant to carry the nation on your shoulders. No fucking pressure. One of the servants has tasted their food for poison, so they dig into their meal. Momonosuke is crying. I like the touch that Hiyori doesn't know what's going on, which makes it a little bit extra heartbreaking. The execution is about to begin. They've got the oil boiling up, and they're like, oh yeah, you don't want to miss this. And so everyone's like, he couldn't beat Kaido. No, I mean, he's a fool of a lord, but I thought his strength was the real deal. So if he's not even strong, what good is he? And so Oden just says over to Kaido, I request you give me a chance. It's imperative that I survive. And everyone's like, come on, get into the pot. And I don't know exactly what happens. I think the guy just trips like a fucking idiot and falls into the boiling oil while he's trying to torment Oden.
Yeah, he does. He just slips.
What a fucking idiot. But this demonstrates, in seconds he's dead. So, yeah. But Oden says, all 10 of us will enter the pot together, and if any of us withstand the boiling for the amount of time you agree upon, let them go free. And none of his vassals know about this ahead of time. So, Orochi is like, well, you're all going to die. Come on. And Kaido is like, all right, go get a clock. You have 1 hour. Let's see you last that long. A little bit of an echo of the time that he had to survive in order to join Whitebeard's crew. But they're like, yeah, we'll see. You've got, and so Oden demands that he give his word, and afterwards, Oden gets into the pot immediately. It's overwhelming him. But they're like, okay, come on, everyone after him. We'll meet again in the afterlife. But Oden says, all of you get on top of the plank, and he hefts up this plank. And all of the samurai balanced on top of it while he carries them safely above the boil.
Oh, Nick! He still got it!
So
he still got it!
Lord Oden is protecting all of his vassals and taking the punishment himself so he can save their lives. And all of them like, we should be the ones holding you up. And he's like, stay up there. This is an order. Oh my God, this entire flashback, even if it sucked, this would have been worth it. So Orochi objects to this, and Kaido's like, they're all in the pot. This is really fun. Keep it going. So, with 9 people balanced on his back, he's holding them all up, and the minutes slowly tick by. A few pages have passed, and I'm like, okay, he's made it like a few minutes right now. He's made it 40 seconds in the course of those pages, and then we get a little time skip too, a couple minutes later.
Yeah.
Like, it's agonizingly slow. And it gets up to 4 minutes, and eventually someone is like, wow, this is actually really boring. So they're all like, wow, I figured he'd be dying in agony, but I better get going. I can't be wasting any more time on this fool of a lord. And Shinobu's in the crowd, and she knocks the guy over, and she says, how dare you call him that? If you say that again, I will end your life. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's Kunoichi. But she just, makes a big fuss, screaming, and says, you are the fools. Who do you think has been ensuring that you all live in peace? If you lose Lord Oden now, you'll come to understand. You'll know how much misery he kept at bay. For Orochi's no shogun, or even a dictator, Orochi doesn't want to rule over a populace. And we finally see the conversation that Oden and Orochi had a few chapters ago, where Orochi said, every single person in this land is guilty of persecuting the Kurozumis. I don't care if every last one of them dies. I took the shogun's throne to drive this country into ruin to complete my vengeance. Years ago, my grandfather committed a crime. I was forced to commit seppuku, and our clan fell into ruin. That was one thing. But then the rest of the family left behind was chased and terrorized by strangers who claimed they were performing justice. They beat us. They threw us in the river. They killed us. I was so terrified of the mob of fools that I couldn't sleep. The man who committed the crime was long dead at this point. Apparently, even a child can be a criminal if he happens to have the name Kurozumi. So everyone in Wano is a target for my vengeance. You will reap what you've sown. This was so good too, because it is so nice to have this as a motivation for someone. Just like he went to all this trouble in order to become the emperor of this land, not because he wants the power, but out of spite. And that's why he has made this deal with Kaido to exploit the lands and stuff. He's getting nothing out of it but the satisfaction of seeing people suffer. And that's why you want to see Luffy punch him in the fucking face.
Yeah.
So. And then Shinobu,
that's why Cody Rhodes has to face MJF at Revolution. You can see.
I mean, it's been a good storyline. I just don't like MJF. Yeah.
I was gonna say, anyway. You can see like the life die in Nick's eyes when you bring up MJF.
Fucking, he's such a good promo. No, he's not. Anyway, Shinobu says that after this, he brought out the tribute for Kaido. Hundreds of kidnapped people, they would be sold, tortured, or killed once handed over. And Lord Oden was furious, but then Orochi made the suggestion that if you want to stop the kidnapping, then if you go to war against us, you'll lose far more than you bargained for. The agent, so yeah, because Orochi has nothing to lose because he doesn't care about anyone, it just became clear that more would be lost than just the question of victory or defeat. So Oden accepted Orochi's offer. He made the public dance in the buff every week. He knew he would lose his standing, but he would save 100 lives with each dance, and he trusted that 5 years after their promise, he would agree that they would sail away from this country when they were done building their ships. He traveled from region to region every week, making certain that nothing had changed. For all of these years, Lord Oden has been protecting this land. Tell me again, who are you calling a fool of a lord? Awesome chapter.
It's great. It angers me. It angers me to think that there was even a moment where I was starting to think, I was like, maybe Oda just doesn't have it anymore. Like maybe the best moments of One Piece are kind of behind us, and like everything else from here is just kind of fucking wrong. He killed it with this chapter. It was everything. It was everything, Nick.
Yeah, it's insanely good. It doesn't just have that big moment of Oden lifting everyone up out of the oil, because then it's like, oh, this is the big, heroic sacrifice that the figures of legend and the flashbacks make. But that speech from Orochi where he's just like, I don't give a fuck about any of this. I just want you all to suffer. So good.
It's great. And you do kind of feel for him too, where you're like, I kind of see why you're
he's like right.
That. Like they persecuted you just because of who you were born to. So I think there's a lot to really take from this.
He's right to be angry about this. He's right to want something to be done about it. But of course, the folly is the fact that he chooses and takes pleasure in perpetuating the cycle of vengeance. And that's why he's the villain, is because he could have not done that. And instead he chose to be a dick. So that's it for this week of Weekly Manga Recap, y'all. Chris, MVP, favorite series?
I mean, it's
not
Oden.
Necessarily in that order.
It's Oden 100%. Oden is character of the week, and chapter of the week is probably One Piece as well. Like, there's some really good ones. I think We Never Learned, Dr. Stone, Mashable. There really were a lot of really good chapters this week, but it's One Piece had just a fucking like a mic drop kind of chapter where you're just like, fuck, I can't wait for the next one.
There were a lot of really good chapters this week. We Never Learned was very good. Dr. Stone was very good. But yeah, it's One Piece. My character of the week, I'm going to go to the brother, the fake Kurose, because I went in a direction that I was not expecting. I think it was really cool. And yeah.
I get it.
So that is going to do it for that.
The audience picked We Never Learned, by the way, as the chapter of the week, and Oden as the character of the week.
So there you go. You were right, Chris. How dare I not pick Oden? Yeah. All right. Weekend Manga Recap, we broadcast live, generally speaking, Wednesdays around 7:30 to 8 Eastern Time here on twitch.tv/ReloadT. If you want to check out more of our show, weeklymangarecap.podbean.com is where all the old episodes are. Leave a like, comment, rating, all that good stuff so that we can rise to the top of the iTunes hobby section. If you want to ask us questions and stuff like that, suggest manga and all that, you can find all that stuff in the Discord server, which is where you can also see Ninja X3I's Google Docs page, where he keeps track of the manga recommendations that we have taken and stuff like that. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters. Your support allows us to create bonus content for you guys to enjoy. Steve Mann, our Tower artist, Infamous Planet for the visual editions of the podcast, as well as just the visual frame that we have and everything. Opening sequence by Mallow Jack Stillitz, Winsdale Shedder. And that's going to do it.
Yeah, that's going to do it then. Our next recommendation, I kind of panicked and looked around, and nothing was really feeling right. So I just decided, hey, you know what? You did Mob Psycho. Why don't we just hit another one that's on the big requested recommendations? So the next one is going to be Zatch Bell.
Oh, boy. All right. So you heard it.
There you go. All right, that's it. Nick, throw us off into that sunset. Yeah! We're so good. We're so good at improv and theater of the mind. We're fucking great.
I was trying to think of a sound effect for throwing someone, but there isn't really one.
Yeah, it is. There's yeet. You go yeet.
I don't do that, though.
Yep. Yeet and dab with me right now. Yeet.
No.
We're so cool. Yeet.
No, I am 30 years old, Chris.